Designing in WordPress is characterized by sections, column, margin, and padding. These four things work together to come about great and befitting looking designs. So in this tutorial, we will right ahead and I will show you how sections, columns, margin, and padding can be used inside of your WordPress website design. So a section is normally something that looks like this. So sections, you have S over it, and when you see a column, you know it has a C inside of it. So a section basically takes the full width of the website, or depending how you want to make your settings to look like, and they usually take on this width of the website. So the by default, the width of the website is always for 1140 pixels by the space. So a section is what enholds it. Now, talking about columns inside of WordPress. So a WordPress is, or a column is simply stacked inside a section. So you cannot add a column on an empty space. You can only add a section, and then inside a section you can add a column in a section. Now, two sections cannot stack within the same row, or I don't know if it is a column, so you cannot stack a section here and then you stack another section here, so it doesn't work that way. And also for columns, you cannot stack a column above each other, so but you can stack a column beside each other. So you can stack a column to the left or to the right. So you see here, you cannot stack two columns over each other, so it won't work when you're using Elementor page builder. We'll see most of this practically when we are where I'm showing you the details of what we are explaining here. So you can always stack columns this way, that is a column to the right, another to the left, and you can keep on adding the columns each and every time you want a column to appear within that very position. But for sections, you can only stack up a section like this, or kind of do something like stacking a section this way, another section this way. And I know this would be some sort of a question, because you get to ask yourself now, if you want to make a design that looks like this design that we have over here that I did in XD. So something like this, if you want to stack out four different elements that are so much close to each other, for instance, if I get to take this guy over, and then let me just say over here, this guy was so much close to this over here. So how can you implement this kind of design inside of Elementor page builder? So it's really simple, because Elementor gives you access to some features that you can use, and that is where margin and padding comes in. But before this one comes in, we still have to talk about how you could use section features inside of your WordPress web design. So in this scenario, we will have to see all this and that. So in this step, let me show you guys in a minute. So if we come over here and we kind of check it out, like here, you can see that we can use what we call inner sections. So an inner section can only be inserted inside of a column in WordPress or in Elementor. So you definitely have a section, and you can see here, this is a section, and in this section we have a column, but inside the column again we have another section, and in this section we have a column here, a column here. So it's definitely, or by default, two sections that comes with an inner section, and you can definitely duplicate one of them to form three sections to have the other design I just showed you guys of recent. Now, if you want to come up with that kind of design that you saw over there, you can now stack up the sections over each other to come out with something that looks like this. So what are you seeing over here? I'm sorry, there's no C here, but over here there is a C, which shows that we have a section here, a column, a section, and a section. So these two sections are stacking above or each other, or one is above or one is below. And in that scenario, you can see that this is a whole design where you can now implement your design using margin and padding to do some more editing features that will help you so much more. So practically inside of my website here, you can see, like here you have different columns over here that have been stacked next to each other, and this is in a normal section, so it is not like an inner section. And the way I did this is just like duplicating each column over here. So if you right click over here and you can click duplicate, you see you can make a duplicate of that particular column. So this is not what I wanted to do. So for instance, I want to show you guys how we could like implement what I've just shown you over there. So inside of sections, as I said, if you click over here, you are adding what we call a section, and you can choose to add whatever section you are adding over here, like the way it is designed, the number of rows inside of it. Let's just choose to go with 1. So from our explanations, we definitely saw that inside of this we have, this is a section for instance, and in the section we have a column. So if I hover here, you can see I am editing the section, and if I click over here, so if you see here edit section, because I clicked over here, and if I click here, like I'm editing now the column. So the columns are always inside the section, and when you take a look at how the section width is, it takes the entire width of your website or the screen, but the section inside of WordPress takes a default which is that 1140 pixels, which is the default width of Elementor. So now for us to talk about the inner sections that we spoke about, now as you can see here, you cannot stack a column above each other, because if I try to duplicate this over here, it will try to stack it next to each other, but this is not the kind of design we wish to implement. So we'll just get rid of this and then we'll move forward. So we spoke about inner sections. So inner sections is just a way that you can implement an inner section inside of here. So as you can see now, you have a section, a column, and a section inside of a column. Now if you are working on like getting a kind of design, like let me say a kind of befitting design, so for me to be able to do this, I'll just do a small scratch through design so that you guys see what I am talking about. So for instance, if I come over here, I just want to give it like add some content to this. So if I came over here, for instance, and I add a heading tag, for instance, inside of it. So one thing you have to understand is that content inside your Elementor would only fit into a column. So you cannot add content into a section, so it must definitely enter inside a column. And don't forget that columns are always inside of sections. And for you to be able to add an inner section, you must be able to add it inside of a column. I know it sounds kind of confusing, but once you start doing your own designs, you definitely understand more better of what I'm trying to understand. So if we just come over here and we say heading 1, for instance, so we say heading 1, and then we want to add again something into this, like for instance an image. So we can insert an image beneath the heading, for instance, something like this. And then over here, we want to choose an image from our database, and then we can select an image from the database and insert over there. So over here, it is done. So I just want to pick out this first image and insert. And then as you can see over here, it inserts the image here. As you can see, the image is quite big, but there's always one thing cool. As you reduce, it is mobile responsive, so we'll leave it at this stage. So for instance, if I wanted to add a button to this, maybe click to know more. This is just for tutorial purposes, so this is not like a design that would make really that will be on my website. So I'm just kind of doing this for tutorial purposes. So if we insert a button here, all right, so we have a button here, click me. So for instance, this is a design, for instance, and we wanted it to be like 4 of them in one row, and then we can now duplicate this section to form another one as we explained earlier. So for instance, I can get rid of this other section or this other column here such that I can be able to duplicate this guy to be 4 of them within one row, and then I will show you also how you could duplicate a section to form 2 sections. Now you can just basically change and have different contents in each of them, so this helps you so much more. So Elementor has this probability, like this feature. You can edit one, maybe if the 4 of them or the 5 of them, the 10 of them has the same design, you can design one and then you use them. But this one would definitely differ when you start working with margin and padding, because at times you have to do some calculations to be able to do, or for your design to really come out well, nice looking and kind of shaggy. All right, so we just basically or definitely have to duplicate this 4 times to form 4 duplicates of the same thing. So for instance, if we had this, maybe you could have a different heading, a different image, different heading, different image, different heading, different images. And then over here, it comes with a default padding and margin between each and every element. You can still go to change it if you wish. So looking at this design over here, we have something like this. Now, if you wanted to duplicate, you can right click over here and then you duplicate this, and then you discover that that section will stack beneath or over the other section. So the duplicated section will definitely appear beneath this one, and then you can now definitely change your content to give you whatever design you're looking for. So over here you can see we already have a design. You can just basically change the images, and then you've succeeded to come out with a design that looks like this. But what you're seeing here is a background image then with a text overlay at the center. So what I literally use here is what we are going to talk about in the part 2, which is margin and padding. So over here I just added a padding over here. So there's a padding over here which can be 50 pixels from here to here, here to here, here to here, and here to here. So the padding basically pushes the content to the center, and then there is so much space to display the background image. So if you see here, there's no background image, so I'm not implementing that. In our upcoming tutorials, I will show you how you could like add a background image, add some kind of text or even a video or whatever thing you want or you wish to implement. So apparently this is all about understanding sections and columns inside of Elementor. Let me just grind through and explain some few features over here. As you can see, you can still leave some sections in your website not used, but you can still do it, and then you centralize the content. Like for instance here, I just added this because of the spacing. I wanted it like the white spacing in a design, and then all of that. So there are many things that you will still have to understand. So you can see over here, this is just a simple design I made with the help of the sections and columns. And also here, this is where my inner section really applied more, because inside of this column there is an inner section that will hold this text, this one, this button, and also these images that have been placed this way. So I can literally move these images. So I just use the position absolute on this design, and then the images are movable. In our recent coming videos, I will show you how to get this. All right, guys, let's talk about margin and padding inside of Elementor. Now, talking about margin and padding, so margin is on the external of an element, while padding is on the internal of the element. I don't know how you understand this, but I will show you guys a quick example on how margin and padding works inside of the Elementor page builder. But if you haven't still watched my video on introduction to Elementor, you can watch the video above to know how Elementor functions and some basic stuffs about Elementor. Then you come and watch this video, you understand more better now. So margin is on the external and padding is on the internal, and we'll see all that along the way. So for instance, in this design, as you see over here, this is just basically a design over here that has a background image with padding top. So there's a padding top that pushes this content right to the bottom. So this padding here just helps to like push this right way here, that you still have the background image displaying fully well, because if you just allow it like that without adding a padding, the container or the column where that particular content is found will just be kind of small, just to the size of the text. So it is the same thing that have been implemented here. And as I told you guys, if you look here, this is just simply a section here and another section here, of which this just one of these have been designed and then duplicated to form this and then re-edited. That is the content change on all of them. And then here they have simply used margin, which is a negative margin, to push this content. Maybe it would have been somewhere around here due to the white spacing to right to the top to this point to form this kind of nice looking design. So we have many other designs that looks like that. Like for instance, this one also was made with that kind of scenario where you have this on the background, these designs all looking great. So also here, as you can see, this one here also is made with it, so it's just having like some sort of an internal padding that pushes the element inward, then also a margin that contains within each element in this design. All right, we'll right over to Elementor and I'll show you how to implement margin and padding in your designs. All right, so we are here inside of our Elementor page builder. As you can see here, if we try to add a section, so I'll just try to add a section that has 4 of those same sections, such that we can use these 4 sections to implement what we talk about margin and padding. Now the first thing I want to implement here is padding, and here I will try to give a padding of 100 pixels from top and bottom for you guys to see how padding looks like. So when I click here showing here editing section, you come over to your styles, to advanced. So you have to come over to advanced, and when you move to advanced, over here you see margin and here you see padding. Now if you click over here, you reset everything down, and also here, such that you'll be the one to add whatever padding you wish to add, because if you come here and then you try putting or filling the padding here, you see that it works like it increases on all of them. So that is not what we want. We want to add padding just to the top and the bottom. So here you have to make this to be kind of reduce this now, and then we work with the padding top. So over here we want to add a padding top of 100, of 100, and then over here the padding bottom also, we want to add a padding bottom of 100. So when you look at this design over here, what you see is there is a spacing from the top to the bottom inside the section. So here you see the section definitely pushes the columns to the middle, that is 100 pixels from above and below. So that is how paddings work. Now you can insert paddings even inside of columns. So for instance, I can pick this column over here and I edit the column and give it also an internal padding, and then it is great. So if we come here, we can come over to padding. For instance, I can give the padding top of maybe, let me say 50 pixels, and then a padding bottom also of 50 pixels. So something like this, and here is because there's no content yet, then you would have seen how it is implementing inside of this. So if I just kind of add up to like this, you will see that it definitely tries to implement a spacing between this when you add content to it. Now over here, how does this padding helps you so much more? So the padding can help you maybe if you wanted to insert a background image to your section. For instance, you can insert a background image to that section without having any worries or any problems. So if we come over here and we come to styles, and then we want to add a background image here, so you can come over here to background, you want it to be normal, and then here you want to come to classic, and then here we are choosing a background image. So if you select a background image, that particular image would be on the background of what you are working with. So over here, let us just check. For instance, we can have an image here that goes with the background. So for instance, let's take this image here and we insert it. So it inserts the image here, but the first thing we see is that the image is duplicated. So there are some other features here that you can kind of like touch, like settings to kind of redeem that. So the position, you can set the position to center. You come to attachment, you can just leave it as default, but if you want it to be fixed, you can allow it to be fixed. Maybe the content will just slide over it, and then when it reaches that position, or you take scroll, meaning it scrolls together with the content. So I always love fixed. At times I use default because default is the same. Repeat over here, you want to set it to no repeat, meaning the image shouldn't repeat. And then the sizing here, you can set it to cover so that it covers the whole screen. So over here you can see change the settings to top right, something like this, such that it's this way. you can see check out like something else, custom or any other one. So let's take center again, and then we set it to, all right, so we set this to fixed, such that now you can scroll and see the entire image while scrolling. All right, so that is it, guys. And you can still basically increase like this. For instance, if you wanted to increase it to about 200 pixels, you see that the image can show well. So for instance, if we take this over to 200, you will see that it definitely displays a greater portion of the image. So that is it. So the next thing you want to do is to understand how you could edit also these columns and add padding to it. So for instance, in here you want to insert something, for instance an image, but before we do that, you want to give this guy over here a background color of white. So you come over to styles, after you click over here and you come to your stylings, and then you come to background, and then you will just want to set a background color over here, which is white, something like this. So here you see we have a white background color. Now the next thing we want to do is, for instance, now you can add content to it. Yes, just to add content, and now the content can kind of change or differ with respect to what you are trying to add. So if we come here to add content, for instance, if we insert an image inside of this section like this, so you see now, because I added some content into it, it tries now to implement the padding that was in it. So by default, the padding will not appear if you don't add content to it. So if I come here, you see there's 100 padding. So if I remove it from here, you see the image is stagnant and it's alone. So the next thing I want to do is to edit this image over here. So we want to insert an image inside of it, and then do some other possible settings with the image. So if we click over here, the pencil icon, when you hover on the image, you can come over here. So we have the image. You can come over here to where you have the image content. Here you can choose how it looks like. Then you come over here, you can do some quick settings like setting the border radius. Maybe you want the border radius to be in percentages, and then you want to set it up to 50%, for instance, for it to be round. So we set it up to 50%. So it's this way, but the image hasn't been inserted yet, so we'll have to come to content and insert our image in it. So we'll have to choose an image to insert, and then let us just pick again this image over here, or this one, because it is square. So we have something like this, but still yet the image is not that good looking because I used percentages. But this is just for tutorial purposes though. So the next thing we want to do here is kind of try to implement something over this image. So I will just kind of remove all of this, so there is no margin, no padding. So this is the image. Now if there's one thing you wanted to do, maybe you wanted your design to be like the image should be stuck out on a different direction, you can definitely do it. So for instance, if I come here, click on the edit button here, and I go to edit the image, and I go to advanced, I can now work with margin and padding. So for instance, you wanted to give a padding bottom, like shifting it from the bottom, let me say a padding bottom of about 100 pixels. So 100, you see it kind of gives that image a vignette padding. So any other content that is entering here will be stacked away from it. So if we talk about like the padding right, for instance, to the right of the image, we want to give it a negative padding. So if I say negative 100, so this image was supposed to go to the negative 100 direction, but I don't know why it's not moving. But let me add some other content inside of this to see how it displays. So if we come over here, for instance, and we kind of try to add a button to it. So we have a button, and then we insert a button inside of it, or this section here. You see the button appears here, but still that padding we added, which was the negative padding, isn't not working perfectly. Now the reason is because padding works on the internal. Now if you want something that pushes it on the external, that is when we'll start talking about margin. So margin over here works on the external, and if I come here, this padding right I'm giving this guy here is not supposed to be here. So if I erase this over here, and then I come over here and then I give it negative 100, for instance. So what do you see? Oh, sorry about that. So what do you see? It kind of slides the image away from the container. So this is the container that withholds the image over here. It slides it away. Also, if I want to give it, or somehow from the left hand side also, of negative 100, let me say negative 100, such a way that it's like this. So you see the image is now bigger than what we see over here. So if I came here and I kind of remove this, you see that the image is kind of stacked towards the other side and trying to come or pull out towards the other side. Now if I also come over here like to the padding top, I can also give it a negative, let me just say 20. You see that it comes out of this column and then it is kind of out, because you see the column starts somewhere here, but now the image is out of the column. I can still reduce this over here to about 50 pixels, so that you see how it comes out like the puffing. It puffs out from here, as you can see it over here. So that is how these ones are implemented. So that is how margin is. So margin works from the external. So for instance, over here, if you wanted this guy over here to kind of shift upward towards this guy, you just have to basically come to advanced, and then you have to give it a negative margin for it to be able to shift towards the top. So if I click here to remove this, and then I kind of put negative 100 for you to see, you see it takes the content right up this way. So if you have a scenario where maybe in one of your designs something stacks over another one, not in the sense that it is kind of like above the background, you can use all this to implement it. So if I put something like 20 over here, you see what I'm trying to talk about. So you see this one here is really close to this, and you can implement that in different cases. Now on this other side here, I just want to show you something. We are not making a proper design, but I just want to show you, maybe if you wanted to add a background image and then content over the background image, this is how you could go about. So if you come here, you click over this section, you just come to styles. Again, it's just the same way we inserted the background here. So you just come to styles, background. So you want to select the background image for that particular section, and then maybe after that selection you could just start doing things. So if we come here and do a selection of this, let's just take this as our background image and we insert it, you see we have something like this. You can just kind of do some matte settings like center. You want to, like, let me say, okay, so repeat, we have no repeat, and then size should be cover. So you see how it appears now, and maybe you could insert a button inside of here and put there click me, and it's like a call to action button. So that is it, like implementing some of those features I showed you all guys over there with the help of margin and padding. Now you could insert a button here, and that will be great. So you see the button is inside of this section, and you can decide to like centralize all of this, like make it to be at the center. For instance, you just have to come over to layout here, and then you come to vertical alignment, you come to middle, you come to horizontal alignment, you send it to the center, and then you have basically centralized this. So if you come here, you can just put it towards the center, and then now the image is found at the center of that column. So depending on whatever design you want to make, it can be really possible and easy to make if you put in the energy and the kind of workforce. So basically, this is how you could manipulate padding and margins inside of WordPress. Alright, so I thank you guys for watching, and in our next tutorial we'll see how you could do more and better things using Elementor to build websites inside of WordPress. And not until then, see you guys in our next tutorial.